Dear friends, Ukraine signed rare minerals deal. What's the implications? American Republicans threaten Russia with new sanctions. Muscovians throw cluster munitions over Kyiv and prepare for the cringiest military parade in history. Let's talk about all this right now. Ukrainian defenders on the ground report about intensifying combat in the area of Pokrovsk. 198 Russian attacks were recorded yesterday, and among them 85 took place around Pokrovsk. As we can see, Russia is totally preparing for the Victory Day ceasefire, but we will talk about the imbeciles a bit later. Tonight, Kyiv was attacked by the Russian kamikaze drones. The local authorities reported that the Shaheds delivered cluster munitions with delayed detonation, which makes them extremely dangerous for the civilian population. Authorities have warned the citizens about this new threat, which is something I don't remember seeing before, but obviously it's a new crime for the Hague's evidence database. President Zelensky warned about possible Russian offensive that is prepared in Belarus. We're talking about the possible Russian attack that may start before summer this year. At this point, the terrorists are running military exercises on the territory of Belarus, which never meant anything good. As you remember, last time it happened, they invaded Ukraine in 2022. Today is a very interesting date, my friends. On this day in 2014, Russian oligarch Prigozhin and Russian officer Utkin founded the terrorist group Wagner. In the beginning, which was absolutely typical for Russians, they lied about this group. Putin persuaded everyone that Wagner didn't exist. But in 2022, all of a sudden, the Russians stopped being so shy and admitted that Wagner, which was funded by Kremlin, has been fighting against Ukraine since spring 2014. 11 years ago, an undercover Russian terrorist group Wagner has been occupying Ukrainian cities in Donbass, pretending it was a local coup. Years later, imbeciles called it a civil war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the rare minerals deal has been signed yesterday between Ukraine and the United States. Some experts already call this deal a clear diplomatic win for Ukraine. Let's check out why they do that. First of all, this deal helps secure continued U.S. military support for Ukraine, which is extremely important. The country will keep full ownership and control of its natural resources. Also, joint fund will be set up by Ukraine and the United States. And particularly interesting fact is that America can count some of its defense aid as part of its contribution. Also, Ukraine's debt is not part of this deal, and state-owned giants like Ukrnafta and Energoatom remain in Ukraine's hands. Also, according to this agreement, the profits will stay in Ukraine for the first 10 years. They will be reinvested in local projects. Additionally, the deal follows Ukraine's constitution. Also, it doesn't interfere with Ukraine's path to Europe and only requires just a few legal tweaks. Ukraine's parliament still needs to ratify it, and additionally the US will help attract investors and technologies and innovations through the Development Finance Corporation. Also, this fund gets tax breaks in both countries, and the deal covers 57 minerals with the option to add more later. But again, it doesn't include security guarantees, that is according to Reuters. Trump said that this deal could bring the US more than $350 billion in the long run, which is good for the United States. Also, different sources in Kremlin reported that Putinoids were extremely embarrassed because this deal was signed. Apparently, they expected the same deal to be signed between the United States and Russia on the first place. Kirill Dmitriev, for example, bragged about it all day long. Another interesting update is that the US Senator Lindsey Graham is pushing a hard-hitting bill. If Putin doesn't get serious about the peace talks, which we all know he won't, the US could slap 500% tariffs on Russia, including any country buying Russian oil. As far as I understand, that is a financial nuke, my friends, and what's even more wild is that 72 American senators are backing this bill. But it's not all. Turned out something interesting was happening behind scenes. According to Politico, French President Macron and UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer have been privately lobbying Trump for the past 3 months, trying to get him to stop bashing Zelensky and focus on the real problem, which is the Russian threat. And it seems they managed to get through to him. They reportedly told Trump that Putin doesn't respect him, thinks he's a joke, and ignores every US attempt at diplomacy, which apparently hit a nerve. Unfortunately, Trump is surrounded by individuals like J.D. Vance, Witkoff, and Elon Muscovite, which are widely recognized as either fans of Putin's dictatorship or simply fucking imbeciles. Of course, in this environment, it will be hard to keep stable connection with Trump, but still not impossible. Now, let's talk about the Russian cringe, my friends, because I know you've been expecting it. Apparently, internationally wanted war criminal Putin, also known as Huilo, is preparing his terrorist country to the military parade that will take part in Moscow on 9th of May. And while the citizens of the terrorist capital could witness the armored vehicles taking part in the rehearsal, on the front those tanks and APCs are nowhere to be found. For example, take a look at yesterday's Russian losses: 3 tanks and 11 armored vehicles against 139 motorized vehicles. We're talking about motorbikes, Ladas, Muscovians, golf carts, Bukhanka, minivans, and unknown number of donkeys. While the Moscow parade will most probably feature some of the modern Russian tanks, maybe HARMATAs or things like that, the real situation on the front lines for Russians looks absolutely different. In the meantime, the Russian schools also prepare for the parade, my friends. The cringy Russian Hitler-Jugend show that you're witnessing on your screens at this moment has been thoughtfully prepared for you by caring Russian teachers and parents. And if you ever wondered how to grow your very own little fascist, there's nothing easier. You simply gotta send your ankle biter to a Russian school. You know, I remember one time the legendary Sting was singing, "I hope Russians love their children too." The answer is no, they don't, sir. It's just so you could understand who are those guys on the other side. Who are those Russians who curse you on their kitchens for being free and wealthy and raise their crumb snatchers as future Russian fascists? After this segment, I'm not even sure if I should mention the toilet paper. However, why not? Remember that huge ammo storage that went off in Russia the other day? Caring Russian volunteers from Putin's party Единая Россия decided to help the citizens of the surrounding villages by supplying them with the toilet paper. If you're asking yourself what the hell, the answer is simple. Apparently, this is how they prepare Russian citizens for the upcoming fireworks on the Russian military enterprises, because Russia produces a lot of weaponry and has a lot of military targets waiting to go boom. With that, my dear friends and family, I wish you all a beautiful day. I'll see you in the comments. I'm Operator Starsky. As always, be safe.